sweaters, pumpkin spice, and of course, leaves. But have you ever wondered why leaves change colors in the fall? Well, today I'm going to tell you about why leaves change colors and how they kinda don't. In school, you probably learned about plant cells, the cell wall, nucleus, and of course mitochondria.
The powerhouse of the cell!
But what we need to focus on are the chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are like little energy factories within plant cells. The generators in those factories would be chlorophyll, the pigment that gives leaves their green color. They work by taking energy from the sunlight and using them to make sugars to fuel the plant. They're essentially microscopic solar panels. There's another group of pigments called carotenoids that help with photosynthesis and help shield against light damage. Even though they're also present within the chloroplast, they're overshadowed by all the chlorophyll, meaning you usually don't see them. So, chlorophyll makes us see green, and carotenoids causes us to see yellow and orange. By the way, the reason we see those colors is because the pigment absorbs all the other wavelengths of light and reflects the rest back for us to see. This means that if you take away the chlorophyll, which absorbs blue and yellow-red colors, you'll be left with only the carotenoids, which reflect the yellow and red colors. Alright, but how do you get rid of the chlorophyll? And wouldn't getting rid of the thing that gives the plant its energy cause it to die? Senescence is the process by which chlorophyll and thus the leaves of a plant break down in preparation for winter. Thanks to chemical light receptors called phytochromes, which detect red light, and cryptochromes, which are sensitive to blue light, trees can detect the change to the length of a day down to as little as half an hour. This works because daylight has more blue light than the evening where red light is more prominent. So, when these photoreceptors detect less and less blue light, they can conclude the days are shortening and thus winter is approaching. On top of that, as the days get shorter, there's less and less light to photosynthesize, so the plant will produce less and less chlorophyll, revealing the carotenoids that were present all along. There is one exception though. Sometimes the sugars a plant produces will build up in the leaves and cause a chemical change that produce a new pigment called anthocyanins. These are responsible for the deep burgundy and red leaves you see in oak, dogwood, and maple. This leads us to our second question. How do plants survive without photosynthesis? Alright, so you remember how I compared chlorophyll to solar panels? Well, then the trees are basically batteries. Let me explain. Along with diminishing daylight, the temperature begins to drop in the fall. If the temperature drops too low, the plant cells will freeze and burst, which can harm and even kill the plant. The combination of less daylight and lower temperatures triggers the plant to go into survival mode. In order to stay alive during the freezing temperatures, the main part of the tree will suck up all of the energy and sugars that it produces so it can store it and use it throughout the winter, which means it doesn't have to photosynthesize for a long time. At the point where the leaf stem meets the twig or branch is an array of cells called the abscission zone. This is the reason that leaves fall. Essentially, a protective barrier forms in between the leaf and the branch, so the leaves can safely fall off without leaving an open wound. As autumn days shorten, this layer chokes off the xylem and phloem, which are in the veins that bring water into the leaf and food into the tree. Once the leaf is completely sealed off, it falls off with as little as a light breeze. Okay, so if leaves change colors and fall off to protect them during the winter, why don't evergreen needles fall off? Evergreens or conifers evolved before broadleaf plants and took an entirely different approach to the problems that winter poses. To protect from freezing temperatures, their needles build up cryptoprotectants, which lower the freezing point of water within the plant, which basically means they have built-in antifreeze. The needles also have a waxy coating that protects them from cold and water loss. Because of these adaptations, conifers don't need to grow new needles for several growing seasons, sometimes up to 50 years. The difference boils down to this. Deciduous plants use a lot more energy to make broad leaves, that soak up a lot of sun during the growing season, but are ultimately more fragile. Whereas conifers use a lot more energy to produce their needles, but they can photosynthesize over several growing seasons before needing replacement. So, the next time you see a beautiful mosaic of leaves, remember there's much more going on than meets the eye. As always, use this information responsibly, and I'll see you outside.